Hi, my name is Mark Gernot. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about Russian oil, the sanctions, the new sanctions, and the impact on the geopolitical conflict in Ukraine and what's going to happen with this. I would like to say in 1975, there was SPI, this game I used to play, this game company I used to play their games. They came out with a game called Oil War. It was about geopolitical conflicts around the world based on the grab for oil. I actually thought at the time, I was just a kid, it was nonsensical. And apparently that was probably one of the most relevant games out there. But in the gameplay of SPI, they usually had three levels of victory. They had a marginal victory, a substantial victory, and a decisive victory. This new level of sanctions, and you can look on the U.S. Treasury website, the new level of sanctions from the U.S. Treasury on Russian gas and oil is a decisive victory. It puts such pressure on the Russian oil and gas. It's a Ukrainian victory on the Russian oil and gas complex that you're going to see a lot of things happening. Now, I would like to say, first of all, let's put it in perspective. Oh, I've got a Russian ruble here too. By the way, you can see these are real rubles. As close as you want, as close as you get, these are real rubles. I'm not going to say where I got it. I think you guys know. And look at this. Oh, it gives me great feeling, great pleasure to, oh, yes. Yeah. It feels great. This is a Russian ruble. It was, I don't think, okay. The ruble is correlated to oil pretty closely. Between 0.7 and 0.91, if I run a correlation, depending on exogenous events, obviously geopolitical events. So with this additional pressure, I expect the ruble to decline. And we're going to talk about that. You have to say in economics, it's not a coup de grace. It's not the end of Russian oil. It's a marginal effect. It increases costs. Go to the U.S. Treasury website. You can see specifically a Gazprom Neft, and Surgut Neft Gas. These are the two main companies, all the subsidiaries, all the insurance companies insuring these shadow fleet. There's 188 ships, I think I counted, that were going to be sanctioned on the U.S. Treasury website. Go to it, see it, enjoy it. And the impact is always on the margin. In economics, everything is a marginal effect, which means just like a person has a profit margin, it doesn't wipe out all the profit. It increases the cost marginally. But it gets to a point where the marginal cost and the marginal benefit are no longer equal. And the marginal cost exceeds the marginal benefit. That's basic microeconomics. And it starts to bring the house of cards down. And that is what these sanctions are doing. It's a decisive victory economically for Ukraine, in addition to coupled with the pressure that they're putting on the Russian structure of oil and gas through, obviously, Ukrainian activities. Now, Russia has shifted its strategy from Europe, the EU, to China and India, and also Turkey. But I'd say 35% of the world is powered by, let's say, oil and gas. Remember, oil is more than just, cars and factories. It actually generates electricity. Right now, that is declining with new alternatives, and I've recommended in the past, small marginal reactors. These modular reactors are pretty safe. We could just circumvent all this need for oil and gas, but that's another conversation. But Russia is right now gaming on this India and China to be the enablers for their geopolitical expansion and their imperialism. But these sanctions are putting the squeeze on India and China. Of course, enforcement is something else, and we don't know the extent that can be enforced, but that's another story. This is a decisive victory for Ukraine. We can say that normally between 40 and at this point 63.63% of the Russian budget right now is from oil and gas. If you analyze all the incremental effects that when they claim that they have a labor shortage, which is really a budget crisis because they can't pay the workers enough, and everybody should drive that point home, that this oil is now being mitigated with alternatives, right? We have alternatives, green alternatives. The U.S. should start producing much more and tapping into reserves or whatever they want to do in the next administration, mine the national parks. This is going to be a huge oil boom and put downward pressure on oil. Right now, we have a little bit upward pressure. I would say resistance is at 80 and support's at 60. Moving average is about 75 if you look at future and spot rates. And Brent might be up to 80, hitting some resistance. But this, in my opinion, in real value terms, and again, not just nominal, you should have some downward pressure. And this will positively affect the outcome and strengthen Ukraine relative to Russia's ability to pay their budget, which they can't already. So again, it reinforces my initial claim that this is a substantial victory for Ukraine, that these sanctions are coming in and reinforcing their secondary sanctions, the shadow fleet, all these buzzwords you've heard. There's no reason for Russia to be able to sustain itself economically. In my previous videos, I've made a point that basically Netherlands is a greater economic power than Russia and Moscow. Everything's sideways in Russia, any way you put it. And these sanctions will put further downward pressure on the ruble. I see that gold prices are starting to trend upward in terms of moving average. I haven't done a complete moving average analysis of gold and oil and other currencies, but just on the back of the envelope, I can see gold. And I believe that's coming from a little bit of, geopolitical insecurity about the next administration. What's going to happen? Everybody's waiting and holding their breath. Well, I have my own theories. I want to talk about something connected to that really quickly, and that is St. Thomas Aquinas and his idea of economics. He often put economics in the context, or absolutely not often, always put economics in the context of fairness, justice, motive. One should not accumulate capital. It's sinful to accumulate capital and wealth if you're not going to redistribute it and use it for the greater good. You should not make money off of usury, making money off of money. Okay, and this was the Aquinas, and it worked pretty successfully in Europe. But it seems that the modern world has followed more like an Ayn Rand, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Machiavellian strategy towards money. I always advocate, a global ethic, global responsibility. You can read Hans Kuhn. Even though I'm an unrepentant capitalist, I have this idea, like Adam Smith did, like Thomas Aquinas, that capitalism is good free markets are good if you put it in the context of moral behavior. How does that relate to Ukraine, Russia, oil, gas, etc.? It relates specifically because the next administration might start bringing in things like warming relationships with a dictator, sanctions relief for a dictator, warming and friendly and building trade and reversing what has been done currently in the current trajectory we are on. And the current trajectory is a path of victory for free markets, transparent democracies, and justice in the world, global responsibility. The next administration may use warm, fuzzy words, as salesmen sometimes do, like warming relationships, establishing peace negotiations, and all the buzzwords you've heard, including sanctions relief. So our responsibility is to be aware of that and be attuned to that. And what is the next administration going to be doing? Are they going to really be bringing warming relations? Are they really going to be warming relations with a brutal, amoral dictator? Certainly somebody who doesn't follow Thomas Aquinas. Again, one of my claims is that the Tsar of Russia and the Patriarch are both atheist or if not godless people. And I'm not talking in the positive secular humanistic sense. I'm talking in the absolute Machiavellian, do not trust them sense. Do not warm relations. There's only one path we can go in terms of a global community. I mean, this planet's getting smaller and smaller. We have to be thinking in terms of this greater good, the social responsibility, the environment, alternatives. We have to be thinking in terms of justice and not letting bullies dictate the world. So let's, for now, celebrate this decisive victory for Ukraine. This continued pressure against these shadow fleet and secondary sanctions. I even see like some Russian tankers just kind of drifting aimlessly in the Baltic right now. Let's revel in this moment. And at the same time, let's watch this price of oil and watch the rule and see what that's trying to tell us. I think it's good news. The only thing is if there's some huge reversal of that trend from the next administration, obviously, which I'm against. So let's watch it. And always stand for this justice, even if it's going to cost you personally, even if it's going to cost you, the way I do business in life, I always think in terms of justice and fairness. And I hope the world does too. So Ukrainian victory with this decisive, with this oil and gas sanctions coming on, is really going to dampen the geopolitical imperialism. My name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.